Welcome back to the channel, guys. So today we're going to be making some tubes. This is one of the things in lure making that is like a love-hate relationship for me. I really like fishing tubes and I really dislike making them. I'll show you the whole process. We're going to mix up two colors here to do a new laminate, and then I'm going to use we have some green pumpkin remelt with just some purple and gold flake. I'm going to remelt some of that just to make some. So this plastic is actually the hard blend of plastic. You do want to make your tubes a little bit harder just to make them last a little bit longer. We're going to get these new cups in the microwave, and then I'm going to go over this mold with you real quick. So on these tube molds, as you can see sticking out of the back, you have rods that go into the mold. It's kind of like the core shot molds that you've seen. So these rods will go in through the middle of the bait, and then after you inject your color, you'll pull the rods out, and then you'll use a tail cutter, which we'll show you later, to cut the tails and actually make the skirt portion of the tube. So this mold, this is a Lurecraft 4-inch tube mold, and what you'll notice on these rods is you'll see two different notches. And what that does, if you put it on the lowest notch, it pushes the rod all the way up to the front of the tube. You want to do that if you're using internally rigged tube hooks, and I'll show you the rigging and everything at the end when we get them made. But then if you take this rod and scoot it back to that second notch, you can see how much of the head is going to be solid plastic. And that's for if you're rigging it like a Texas rig, and you need that solid head of the tube so that you can rig your hook. All of these today we're going to be making are going to be all the way up, because I'm going to be using an internally rigged tube jig. And I will show you guys all of that. So we're going to wait for that plastic to finish cooking. We'll mix up our color and we'll make this first run. Alright, so we got those two cups cooked up. Now the first thing I'm going to do with this, because I am going to add a little bit of salt, is I'm actually going to mix the salt in first, and then we're going to go on to our color build. So I think I mentioned in one of my videos, if you're making stick baits, or basically the equivalent to Gary Yamamoto's salt level, it's about 1/4 cup of salt for every 1 cup of plastic. I'm going to use 1/4 cup of salt between both of these cups, so it's really only like 1/8 cup per cup. But the reason I'm doing this, so if you can see, look at how much the color has changed from the salt and no salt. I'm doing that on purpose because when I get to the color build, I don't want to throw off my colors by getting the colors dialed the way I want and then adding salt. So I want to get that salt added, get it all stirred in really good, and then start my color build from there. So we're going to get both of these added in. You want to just pour the salt kind of slow, stir it in as you go. And I don't know how much of it you can see. You can kind of see all these bubbles. So the salt does, well, depending on how you have your salt stored, can contain a lot of moisture. So you are going to have to be patient with that. You can run it through a vacuum chamber, or, and I think I've mentioned it before, just throw it in the microwave for 10-20 seconds and then just let it sit for a little. The heat will cause those bubbles to rise and pop. I'm not too concerned because these are just going to be for personal use. So we're just going to get all this stirred in. The salt does cause your plastic to cool down a lot. So I'm going to finish stirring this in, make sure there's no clumps. I'm going to get it back up to temperature, and then we'll start adding our colors. So we got that plastic stirred got the salt stirred all the way in, got the plastic back at the temp. So for the top color, we're going to do a Scuppernong base, and then the bottom color, we're going to use some sand. This is going to be pretty similar to the Gobi video. If you guys haven't seen that, I'll leave it linked down below. We're just going to start with a few. I don't want this color to be too strong. We're just going to add a few drops there, and then see what we're looking like. As I mentioned, the salt does kind of cloud up the color. If you want a super translucent color, I would recommend not using salt, because the salt does, I mean, you can see in this cup how much it clouds it up with nothing in it. That's just salt and clear plastic. So I think that is going to be plenty. So you can see on the stirrer, it's still a pretty translucent color, but with the salt in there, it clouds it up so you can't really see through it quite as well. So I think we're going to stick with that for now. And then on the bottom side, we're going to start with just two. Whoa, that just squirted out. So you don't want to put too much. This particular color is very thick and concentrated, so it doesn't take very much to achieve the color that you're looking for. I think we're good with that. It's not overpowering, but it's just enough. I don't want a very white belly on these. This is going to be kind of a Gobi color, and nothing is really like super bright white in nature, so I like to use this sand color a lot. Just makes it look a little bit more natural. So I think we're good with those. I'm going to add the flake. We're going to add one, or make one run of these tubes, and then if we need to adjust a little bit, we will. But I think we're going to stick with that for now. I'm only going to add flake on the top side. I'm going to add some of the 0.04 copper and then some of the 0.015 black. And get my little scoops. So I'm going to go with a 1/16 teaspoon of the 0.015 black. And then I'm going to do 2 scoops with the 1/16, so an 1/8 teaspoon total of the copper. And we'll see how that looks. If you notice while I'm stirring, this plastic's already thickening up quite a bit. The plastic that has a lot of salt in it does tend to cool off a little bit faster from what I've seen. But we'll still be able to get a pretty good idea if we need to add any more or not. I think we're going to leave it right there. So we're going to get these thrown back in the microwave real quick, get them back up to temp, and then we're going to make this first run. We got our plastic heated back up. Both cups are around 330 right now, which is a little warmer than normal, but it's the first run of the day. So we're going to see how it works. We're going to make this first run, and then we'll adjust the color if we need to. Our plastic is cooled off. We're going to get this open and see what this color looks like. I think as far as the top, that is exactly what I'm looking for. And then let's get this out and see what the bottom looks like. Yep, I'm not going to adjust at all. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Just kind of a nice, natural, kind of a Gobi looking color. I really like using this copper flake in some of these like Gobi small bait fish patterns. I think that just looks really good in that tube. I'll try to turn some of these so you can see. So yeah, we're not going to adjust it. We're going to leave that color right where it's at. You're going to do these the exact same way you do those core shot molds. We oiled the rods prior to putting them in the mold. You just slide it right out, get some oil back on your rods, put them back in the mold, and you're ready for the next round. We're going to wait, and we'll cut all these tails at the very end, and I'll show you a couple ways of how that's done. We are reheated and ready for round 2. I did want to mention, make sure if you're using baits or plastisol that is salted, that you stir pretty frequently while doing remelts. That salt will settle to the bottom and try to burn. So just make sure that while you're reheating that you continue to stir. We're going to get this second round shot real quick, and then we're going to see if we got enough left to do a third. All right, so while we're waiting on that second run to cool, we're going to take all of our scraps. So this is just the little end that comes off of the injector. These are the plugs that are inside the injector. And all we're going to do is we're going to take our scissors, just kind of cut these into some small pieces. We're going to cut them all up just to help it all melt down evenly so that none of the smaller pieces are melting and potentially burning prior to the bigger pieces getting melted down. We're just going to do this right here to the rest of them. Just cut them all into smaller pieces. You can take these little things, just cut them up. And you can go however in-depth with this you want. Some guys will run them through meat grinders prior to doing it. Just whatever you feel comfortable with. As long as you're melting it slow and steady, you can just throw all these in the cup and you'd be fine. I like to just cut them up real quick and then get them all remelted. I think we're going to have enough with melting all this stuff back down to get 1, maybe even 2 more runs. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. I'll see how many I can get. We'll move on to that green pumpkin color, and then I'll show you how to cut the tails at the end. So I ended up getting 4 total runs of those. Really, really like that color. I'm going to take them out here in another week or 2 and really try them out. Just a really, really nice bait fish pattern. And as you can see, even with the rods in that mold, you still get nice clean laminate lines. Like I said, it's very similar to the core shot molds. Even though you have that rod going down the middle of the bait, it doesn't really affect your laminates. I haven't ever tried a triple with it. I'm not sure if anybody actually has. It might work just fine, but I've never tried it. Maybe we'll do that coming up soon. But that is the first color. We're gonna get those put up, and we're gonna move on to remelting this green pumpkin color and make some of these. All right, we got our green pumpkin color melted back down. We're going to add some salt to this because the original plastic that I was using did not have any salt. So again, we're gonna go with about an 1/8 cup of salt for this 1 cup of plastic. And then adding the salt, kind of like I've mentioned, will kind of lighten and brighten that color just a little bit. So after we get all that salt stirred in, we're gonna start with 1 drop of black. I might add more depending on what it looks like, because I do kind of want this to be a darker green pumpkin color. And with those rods going through the middle of the tube body, the plastic is very, very thin, so it's gonna look a little bit brighter than what it does in the cup. Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna add 2 more drops, so that's gonna be 3 drops of black total. And then I think we'll be good from there. Yeah, I don't know how well the camera's picking this up, but that's darkening that green pumpkin up quite a bit, which is kind of what I'm looking for. And then, as you can see, this plastic's already getting super thick. So we're gonna throw it back in the microwave real quick, get it back up to temp, and then we'll run a few of these. We got that plastic back up to temperature. We're gonna start making a run of these, and then we'll check them out. I might, after this first run, we'll see what it looks like. I might darken that color just a little bit more, but we'll pop these open when this is cooled off. We'll check it out and see if we want to make any more adjustments. All right, let's check these out, see what we're working with. And there we have it. I'm not going to add any more black. That's exactly what I'm looking for, just kind of a nice deep green pumpkin. If anyone's interested in how to make this color, the original one that I use is just straight green pumpkin 109 with the medium-sized gold flake, medium-sized purple flake, and then some of the small black flake. And so I just use that, and then 3 drops of black if you're interested in trying to duplicate this color. I want to say for the green pumpkin, this is around 40 drops for 1 cup of plastic, but I don't remember the exact number. But that is our green pumpkin. We're going to do the same. We're going to get the rest of those leftovers reheated, remelted. We'll see how many of these we end up with. All right, we just finished up these green pumpkin tubes. We ended up getting 4 full runs of those as well. So we have 20 of these and then 20 of this Gobi color. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, I do not like making tubes. So the making of the tube is really not that bad. You do have to oil the rod every time, reinsert it. It's a little more time consuming, but this right here is the worst part, and that is cutting the tail. So there's a few different ways to do this. If you really want to save as much money as possible and not buy an extra tool, you can take a pair of scissors, shove it up in there, cut each individual strand however you would like. When I first started, I bought this tail cutter. So as you can see, it's just a bunch of razor blades on this. I bought this from Fusion X. I don't know if you can still get these or not. This is the first one that I bought. You just push it down by hand. What you always want to do, I take just a spare block of wood that I find laying around. I'll set it up there, put a little worm oil on it. I'll usually start, so you can see how this end over here is kind of facing in, and then this one's facing out. What I'll do is I'll start with that end that's facing out, push it down right where I want to start it, and then roll it down. Now, this works. However, it's kind of a pain to use and to get it to cut all the way through the tail. So since using that, I bought this one. This one's from Angling AI, I believe. I'll leave this link down below. So as you can see here, you've got all your razor blades in there. They do have little set screws right here, so if you ever need to take those out and replace the blades, it's pretty easy to do so. But this is a nice, big, heavy, solid aluminum tail cutter, and with it being solid, if you really need to, you can take your favorite hammer, smack on the end of it once you're cutting your tube, and make sure that it goes all the way through. I do recommend getting just a spare block of whatever. A lot of guys will use old used hockey pucks to put that down. You kind of want something that's soft enough to where your razor blades can go all the way through the plastic, and if it even goes into the top of the wood, that's fine, because you know it's going to go all the way through your tube. But yeah, I'm going to grab my worm oil real quick, and then I'll show you how we're going to cut these. All right, so got our oil. What I'm going to do is just put some of this on there. You want to use a nice generous coating. I'll smear it around on the block so that when I move on to the next ones, I'll still have plenty of worm oil there. So what I'm going to do, and so I'll show you on the other one too. You can see right here, this tube cutter maxed out can really only cut up to this point. One of the benefits of this other one is you can see how long it is. If you're making really long tubes and you need to cut a lot, you can cut a lot larger of an area with this. This is just more of a pain to use. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our little tail cutter. We're going to press it down right there on the front. We're going to roll it down to the end of our tube. I'm going to take my mallet and give it one little smack. Kind of roll it around back and forth. So you can see right here, I didn't quite get the very end of that, which is fine. All I'm going to do is take my scissors, kind of cut the end of that off, and we'll be good to go. So once you get it all cut, just carefully pull this out. And you'll notice on the top side, all your little strands are cut completely. On the back, they're not. So you can go through and real carefully pull these apart. What I'll probably end up doing is just throw it back in there, put the cutter back on that side, smack it a little bit harder with the hammer, and then keep going. But that is essentially how you cut a tube. I'm not going to bore you guys with watching me take the next hour and cut the rest of these 40 tubes. So I'm going to turn the camera off, get all these cut, and then I'll meet you back when I'm done. All right, guys, there you have all of those with the tails cut. I'll grab one of these and show you. So it didn't take an actual hour. It took, in all honesty, it took probably about 15 to 20 minutes to cut all these tubes. It's really not too bad, but if you're trying to make a bunch of them and you're cutting them the way I do, it can be pretty time consuming and monotonous. What a lot of guys have done, if you're going to try to do this on like a production level, what they'll do is they'll actually take one of these and they'll drill holes through it back here and they'll mount it to an arbor press. That way they can just set their tube in the press it down, and just keep pumping them out. It is a little bit faster if you want to go that way. I don't make tubes enough to warrant doing all of that and taking up the space to do it, so I'll just take that, smack it with a hammer, and I'm good to go. One thing I did want to touch on with tubes is when you buy a lot of tubes, you'll see the package will say salted and scented. Well, the majority of tubes, when you get one out of the package, it's covered in salt. There's just salt completely surrounding the bait. It's all over it. That is not the salt that they're talking about when they say salted. What they're talking about is the salt that we actually put into the plastisol prior to injecting these. What you'll do, and what I do, is I take salt and just put it in a little bait bag like this. I'll take the tubes after they're done, throw them in the bag, shake it up a little bit, and what that does, what that does is the salt that sticks to the outside of the bait prevents the bait from sticking to itself. What I mean is all these little strands that we just cut with our tail cutter, if you just throw these in a bag, all these little strands are going to stick to each other. It's going to be laying in your mold or in your bag like that. When you pull it out to fish with it, it's going to be all crumpled up. And what the salt does is it prevents the bait from sticking to itself. So when you see tubes completely covered in salt inside of a package, that's literally just packing salt. That's to keep the bait laying as straight as possible in the mold, keep all these little tentacles from sticking to themselves and other baits and getting messed up. The first cast you make with this into the water, all that salt on the outside is gone. It's literally just for packing. I just wanted to emphasize that, because if you buy baits and you roll them around in salt and you throw it out in the water, the moment it hits the water, all that bait on the, or all that salt on the outside of the bait is gone. But yeah, it's, you still want to use, for tubes specifically, I still like to roll them in salt in this bag. I'll show you with a couple of them here in a minute, but I don't want to do all of them because I want to leave them out for a little bit, let them completely cure. But yeah, really cool little baits. Like I said, I really like fishing with a tube, just not a big fan of making them just because of how monotonous and time consuming cutting the tails can be. But yeah, let me go grab a little hook real quick and I'll show you how I'm going to fish these most of the time. All right, so the two ways that I'll rig a tube, if I put that tube in the mold, or the little rod in the mold down a notch to where I have a solid head, I use these. These are the Trocar tournament tube hooks. I don't know if these are available anymore. I know for the longest time they were back ordered. I had some back ordered for like a year and a half and they never actually came in. I'm sure some other companies make tube hooks like this, but if I'm going to be flipping into like some heavier cover, I'll use one of these and I'll just Texas rig it just like you would any other Texas rig soft plastic. That's one way I would do it. For these tubes in particular, I'm going to take just a regular tube hook, and I rigged this, I think they call it a stupid tube, I'm not positive, but basically it's going to be sitting like this with the weight inside of the head of the hook. Now the big thing with this is the way I was taught to rig these and the way I do them, it's kind of a pain because you have to, if you say you rip this tube off and you need to put on another one, you have to cut your line, rig the hook, and then retie, and I'll show you why. So you want to lay it up in here to kind of get an idea where that hook eye is going to come out of your tube. You're going to run your hook up through the tube, and you're going to come out about where that hook eye is going to come out. You're going to bring it all the way around. You can put a drop or two of worm oil inside of the tube if you want to ease with getting it up into the tube. You're going to flip it around and you're going to poke that hook eye out the opposite side of the tube. And then you're just going to rig it like you would like a standard Texas rig. Bring your hook back through. You can Tex-pose it on the back side. And what that does, I know that's not the straightest, but you'll get what I'm saying. So what that does is you have your weight internal in the tube, you have your hook eye sticking out right there, and you have it rigged just like a Texas rig and Tex-posed. What that does is it's completely weedless. Like you can throw this into some of the thickest stuff and it does not get snagged. And then obviously when the fish bites down, you got your hook point right there and you're good to go. Like I said, the way you rig this is you put the hook inside, then you tie your line to your little hook eye right there, and you fish. But again, once you rip this tube and you need to put another one on, if you rig it this way, you'll have to cut your line and retie. But that's one of my favorite ways to fish it. That's probably how I'll fish it most of the time. And then if I ever want to throw into like some thicker stuff or heavier stuff, that's when I'll switch over to this flipping tube hook. Yep. And then for the salt, like I said, I just put some salt in this little bait bag. I'll take a couple of these to show you. Just throw them down in there, zip it up, give it a good shake. And then when you pull these out, it does get messy. You are going to get salt everywhere, but all that salt on the outside of the bait keeps those little tentacles from sticking to themselves and the other baits. Like I said, this is just for packing purposes. It is not going to stay on there. The first cast in the water is coming off. But for packing tubes in particular, this is a must. You can do this with any bait you want, really, and it will make packing them a little bit easier. However, I feel like it's only really necessary on these tubes. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like these? Which one do you like better? Do you like this more of a clear water, kind of a Gobi color, or this just regular green pumpkin with a gold and purple flake? Let me know which one you guys like. I do appreciate all you guys watching and supporting. At the time of recording this video, I have around 430 subscribers. I really want to get to that 500 subscriber mark. Once I get there, I plan on doing a big giveaway for you guys. The giveaway is not going to be, let me just make something on camera, give you guys the leftovers. Whoever I do pick, I'll do another video when I hit 500 subscribers, and I'll show you how to enter on there. And what I'm going to do when I get to that point is I will let you pick any bait, like soft plastic or jig or whatever it is that I make, and I'll let you pick your own color of choice. I don't want to do just a giveaway where I get rid of all the excess baits that I'm not using and I have laying around. I want you guys to actually get something that you would like and that you would use. But yeah, as always, guys, thanks for watching these videos. I do really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hit that like button, subscribe, share the video with your friends, and we'll see you on the next one.